Those of you who still follow world events through the mainstream media may find you're beginning to have some serious questions, like, why is that big head on my television screen lying to me all the time? Why is everything I know about the news completely untrue? And how come I can't get a date? But perhaps the most important question that is troubling followers of mainstream news is, are the Russians good or bad? If they're bad, what's bad about them? And if they're good, why don't they speak English like normal people? The history of Russia, as told by the mainstream media, is very complex. In the old days, Russia was good because they helped us defeat the Nazis, who were bad, which was good, but then bad because then the Russians murdered millions of people and enslaved everybody, which can't be good. During the 60s, the Russians were good because America was bad, because America was fighting communism, which was good, which was bad. The fighting, was bad. Because when America was fighting communism, you could get sent to war and killed, and that was bad because you were good. Then Ronald Reagan was elected, and he was very bad because he was Republican. So when he said the Russians were bad, they must have been good. Reagan said the Russians were so bad that their country would collapse, and all the smart people in the mainstream media said, ha ha ha, you stupid Reagan, because they were good and he was bad. And then the Russians' country collapsed. But not because of Reagan, because he was bad. Now, all the people who had said that Russia was good became college professors so they could teach young people that they were good and America was bad. Then the young people grew up and got jobs as journalists, which was very bad. George W. Bush and Mitt Romney said the Russians were bad, but they were Republicans, so they were bad and the Russians were good. Then America was good because we elected Barack Obama, who was good, and he said the Russians were good, so the Russians were good. And we sent them a great big red reset button, which wasn't bad until they pressed the button and Crimea disappeared, which probably wasn't so good. Barack Obama, who was good, said we should do business with Russia because they were good. So Donald Trump's friends did business with them, which was bad, because Trump was bad. And when he said Russia was good, Russia was bad. But not like Reagan said it was bad, because Reagan was bad, so he couldn't be good, but Russia was bad because Trump said it was good, and he was bad. The important thing to remember is Republicans are bad, so if they say Russia is good, it's bad. And Democrats are good, so if they say Russia is bad, it's bad. That's how the mainstream media tell it anyway, because they suck. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shape, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
All right, the Klavanless weekend is hovering over us like that pendulum in the pit in the pendulum with a blade swinging back and forth. But before it hits, let's talk about your underwear. We have to talk about Mack Weldon underwear, which actually is terrific stuff. You know, we bought some, tried it. It is unbelievably good. It's much more comfortable than the underwear you're wearing right now. And you can test that out by just taking the underwear you're wearing now off and running up and down the freeway screaming, I love Nancy Pelosi. Then I don't know what that'll prove, but just come back and then you can put on some Mack Weldon underwear and you'll be like, I'm suddenly a Republican. I feel great. This is terrific. It really is. It's so easy to shop. You go on their website. They make it out of terrific material. My Mack Weldon hoodie is now one of my favorite pieces of clothing. I really have to keep from doing it lest I get shot. Who's that guy in the hoodie? But it really is terrific. Very, very comfortable. The underwear, it's different. It's different than other underwear. It's just made out of nicer material and it fits better and it's good stuff. Plus, if you're listening to me, you can get it for 20% off. Just drop by and no, that's not how it works. You gotta go on MackWeldon.com and you can get 20% off. It'll be 20% off by using the promo code Klavan. How do you spell it? How should I know? What am I, addicted? I'm sorry. I cracked myself up. Just get the underwear. Don't listen to me. Just get the underwear. Oh, man. All right, we can fix it in post. Mac Weldon, no, absolutely not. Mac Weldon. See, we're the only people left in the country who are still having fun. Everyone else is screaming at each other. MacWeldon.com. It really, I'm actually not joking. It's tremendously comfortable. You get 20% off by using the promo code Klavan, and I will spell it Klavan. MacWeldon.com. Promo code Klavan. 20% off on stuff that is much more comfortable than the underwear you're wearing right now. Oh, my goodness. I'm not sure if they're going to pay me twice for that or just fire me. I'm not sure. Anyway, well, we're living in the aftermath of yesterday's speech, and I don't know if you watched the speech, if you saw it toward the end, if you watched Trump's speech toward the end, all the Democrats got up and quickly ran out of the room, you know. And so here's the report as they report on what happened to the Democrat Party after the speech.
It's frightening, terrible. Oh my, get out of the way, please. It's burning, bursting into flames, and it's falling on the morning beds, and all the folks between us. This is terrible. This is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. Oh, it's like 400 or 500 feet into the sky. It's a terrific crash, ladies and gentlemen. The smoke and the flames now, and the flame is crashing to the ground, not quite to the mooring mast. All the humanity and all the fans just screaming.
It wasn't a good day for the Democrats. It was not a good day for the Democrats. You know, 5 years ago yesterday, our friend Andrew Breitbart died, and I want to talk about that, but I want to talk about it in the context of what's happening with Trump and with the Breitbart sites and all of this history, because now Breitbart has become this word that doesn't mean Andrew. It means these sites that became one of the big, under Steve Bannon's, heading. It became one of the big pro-Trump sites and probably helped him get elected, I would have to say. When Trump got up and made that speech yesterday, and the Democrats ran for the doors, and they didn't applaud for American jobs, and some of them didn't applaud for the widow of a fallen Navy SEAL, and they didn't applaud for all the things that Trump was talking. He was kind of talking about, making compromises and working with them. I just thought, wow, this is a disaster for the Democrat Party. I don't want to overblow it because, Trump can sometimes step on his own feet. He can blow himself up. But that was, here's Dan Henninger in the Wall Street Journal talking about the state of the Democrats. That scene you saw at the moment President Trump ended his speech to a joint session of Congress was the Democrats abandoning the ship of state. Like the progressive street demonstrations endured by the country the past 4 weeks, we may assume Congress's Democratic delegation organized their post-speech bolt to the exits via the famous social media hashtag the resistance. You'd have thought that at the two-thirds point, when Mr. Trump hadn't self-destructed as expected, when instead he was looking less like Alec Baldwin and more like President Trump, that Chuck Schumer might have pulled out his smartphone to tweet the troops, "Walk out, maybe not a good idea. Not this crew. En masse, they went over the side just as they refused to attend hearings for cabinet nominees and voted as a bloc against virtually all of them." So they blew it. I mean, we talked about this yesterday. They didn't see this coming. It really was like a freight train ran them right over as they sat there in their old, we're the resistance. Who was it? Roseanne Barr tweeted the other day. Did you see this? She tweeted, "Trump is the resistance." And I think that that's exactly right. So in the aftermath, the press is scrambling. How can we get back the narrative? This is the press's problem since it began. And Charlie Sykes, who I think was speaking for all journalists, left-wing commentator on MSNBC, listen to him describe this speech, his hopes for the future, that Trump will now self-destruct, and what he feels is happening to the press.
I mean, that was a good speech. It's going to help him. He's going to get a bump. It reassured jittery Republicans. There were some genuine grace notes. But give it a minute. I mean, how many times have we had this discussion? Is he going to make a pivot? Is he going to make a turn? And I think Robert Costa's piece is very important because the point here is that nothing actually changed. There is no policy. He is the same Donald Trump as he was 24 hours previously.
And he does have this ability to change his tune when he needs to be in a different audience or needs to give a different style of speech. We have seen that from time to time in the campaign trail, but this certainly is was quite different from what we're used to with Donald Trump.
But it was a solid speech, although I do think, with the exception of Robert Costa, there's almost a battered pundit syndrome going on out there, where he comes home and he's not abusive and he's not drunk, and so we're just so incredibly grateful. It's so incredibly good.
So he's comparing the press to a battered wife. The only difference, just is that, of course, wives don't deserve to be battered. Whereas beating the crap out of these guys should be a national sport. I mean, they really have been so dishonest. And they immediately, by the way, talking about who's getting battered, here's a chart from our friends at Newsbusters showing the negative coverage, right, is the red, versus the positive coverage for Trump in his first few days, in his first month in office, right? And it's, the difference, if you can't see it, the difference is insane. I mean, the negative comments look like Trump Tower, and the positive comments are like a little hut off to the side. So 74 to 80, 674 to 88. Those are the comments. And that's leaving out partisan commentary. It's leaving out people, who actually were attacking the president or praising the president. This is just from the anchorman. All right. So, and I'm talking about this in the context, I want just to remind you, in the context of remembering Andrew Breitbart, who's been gone for 5 years. And so today, the news trying to take this back, going back to this stupid Russian story, which I believe is a complete nothing burger. I just think it is absolutely nothing. Just remember that until Crimea was annexed, Barack Obama was urging businessmen to do business with the Soviet Union, with the Russians. He was going over to Russia. Obama was accompanied by businessmen and by CEOs, and saying we need to invest in Russia. This is going to press the reset button. Blah 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 blah, and all that money was going to establish and strengthen the regime of Vladimir Putin. I mean, this is what Obama did. Until they annexed the Crimea and he started to impose sanctions, he was helping out the Russians. Of all those businessmen, very, very few of them had anything to do with Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump did very, very little business with the Russians, less than a lot of people who were following Obama's lead. So when they say, Paul Manafort, he was over there representing the Ukraine, Obama wanted them to do that. He asked them to do that. So now they've got Jeff Sessions, and they are claiming, they've just gone nuts. Elizabeth Warren says he has to quit. And even Lindsey Graham, who is like a useful idiot for the Democrats at this point, he's saying, if any of this is true, he has to recuse himself from investigating the Russian ties to the Trump campaign and all this. Al Franken, during his confirmation hearings, asked Jeff Sessions, confirmation hearings for Attorney General, this question, and I'm going to play the whole thing, leave it to you to have it in context. This is the question he asked, and this is Sessions' reply.
CNN just published a story alleging that the intelligence community provided documents to the president-elect last week that included information that, quote, Russian operatives claimed to have compromising personal and financial information about Mr. Trump. These documents also allegedly stated, quote, there was a continuing exchange of information during the campaign between Trump surrogates and intermediaries for the Russian government. Now, again, I'm telling you this as it's coming out, so, But if it's true, it's obviously extremely serious. And if there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it.
Okay, so it turns out that during this time, he was on the Armed Services Committee, and he did meet with the Russian ambassador a couple of times. He says in connection with his duties as a senator, not as a surrogate for the Donald Trump. I mean, it's the Russian ambassador. Everybody's met with him. Everybody in Washington meets with these ambassadors. And so he met with them a couple of times. Now they're saying, oh, well, this is perjury. This is perjury. Completely forgetting, by the way, that Al Franken himself committed this act of perjury here.
I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Every word untrue. I mean, every single, and under oath as well. All right. So here's what I'm going to say. You know what? I'm going to pause here before we get into the Breitbart of it all. I'm going to pause to say goodbye to folks on Facebook and YouTube. Come on over to thedailywire.com and hear the rest of the show, or subscribe and watch the rest of the show. Plus, put your questions in the mailbag and have your life changed, possibly for the better.